And I think this is a good point by Donnell Smith as well, because, the D-line putting pressure. I mean, we just didn't see much pressure from the D-line last year. Really just not much. I mean, we had high expectations. Guys like Bear Alexander coming into the year. He didn't do anything really to prove his worth. And let's be honest, it's true.
And he transferred after 3 games. He got sick of it after the Michigan game and transferred.
Yeah. That forced guys like Eric Gentry to have to basically be a D lineman. I mean, Eric Gentry was basically
also hurt for a lot of last year.
He was hurt as well. And
not to interrupt you, but also Anthony Lucas. There was lots of injuries on that D line.
There was Gavin Meyer. I liked his play at times. Yeah. But I mean, again, it was just a group that we talk about depth. They had little depth and they didn't have the talent they have this year. So those two things in conjunction with each other, just USC was not, and you're going against some really good offensive lines in the Big Ten. And so, last year it was just, you didn't see much pressure from USC on the quarterback. And I think this year with the D line improving, you're going to just allow guys like Eric Gentry to slot back in more into the linebacker, into the box, and be able to do different things. I want to see Eric Gentry break up some passes this year. I think that would be really exciting.
Use those long arms. He was fantastic in the games he played. That's just the reality. But I obviously was obviously dealing with injuries. So,
yeah. And I think, again, we're in the stages of practice right now. I want to hear, next few weeks and maybe even attend practice. What is Kennedy Urlacher going to look like? What is the type of player he can form into? Of course, Notre Dame's defense was constructed much differently than USC's defense last year, right? So, they had a lot more talent across the board. And of course, their schedule was a lot easier than USC's, undeniably, but they still had to go through the college football playoff. And respect to Notre Dame. They went to the national championship, but at the same time, they had an easier ride. They didn't have to play against some of these Big Ten offenses that are not necessarily pass heavy, but they're very mixed and they can do a lot of different things. They have dual threat players. We'll see. We'll definitely see that in games like Oregon. We might see that in games like UCLA. We might. That's the reality. Nico can move, right? So that's going to allow for guys like Eric Gentry in the linebacker position to have to be a little more versatile. And we know Eric Gentry can be versatile. We saw him in his first year at USC in 2023. He was great. That Cal game, he's the only reason they won that with that SWAT. And so we know he can defend passes. We know he can sack the quarterback if he needs to, or get tackles for losses if he needs to. But maybe take that pressure off him and have a better, pass rush, and then have a better pass defense along with that to allow the linebacker group that we can preview, I'm sure, in a future episode, to, of course, just have more depth. And so it'll probably be Desmond Stevens at the middle linebacker with Eric Gentry out wide. Do you think?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I think Gentry can do either, but I would agree with that. Yeah. Because Stevens is great.
The point is you have Stevens and Gentry starting. Of course, you lose, and we'll preview more of the linebacker group later. But
they lost basically all their linebackers except for Gentry, of course.
Yeah, and him coming back is huge because, I honestly, if he transferred, I don't know if I would have blamed the guy, honestly, because he got hurt. Look, USC is a program I think guys should play at, and I think that's across the board. But he already transferred to USC from Arizona State. He had battled the injury bug. I'd love him to stay. The point I'm trying to make, I wasn't counting at him staying at USC. I thought there's a chance he leaves, and he ended up staying, and I respect the loyalty. And so, a guy like Eric Gentry is a guy who can do a lot of different things. We're going to see that with some of the guys maybe coming out of the 26 class. There's a few athletes in that group that can do a lot of different things. So I don't know. I think overall the depth on the D line helps out the pass rush. And I think we're going to find out in the next few weeks through practice, like I said, what does Kennedy Urlacher look like? Is Kamari Ramsey put on some size? Is he a guy that's, still the same Kamari Ramsey we know? We've heard already, I've heard reports that DJ Harvey and Bishop Fitzgerald are pretty much wowing Rob Ryan and Danton Lynn. They've been very good so far in practice. Of course, we'll see how that translates to games. We don't have a spring game this year. It probably would have been this past weekend if it did happen.
It definitely would have. I was seeing some memories. We were both covering last year's spring game, obviously. I was going to mention, I was kind of waiting to mention this, but I saw the thing I think of when I think Marcellus Williams is he had an incredible interception in last year's spring game. So I'm a little sad that we won't be able to see something like that. Just obviously, the spring game doesn't mean much. I will, of course, say that I was a bigger fan of Jaden Maava after the spring game than I was Miller Moss. Of course, no one will believe me, but that's just kind of what I thought. But it doesn't give much, but it gives something. And I would have liked something. You know, we could have done an episode on the spring game. We could have broken down the spring game. So thank you for that, USC.
Yeah, I see both sides of it. Like, it's NIL, so like everyone's so secretive about everything. And, you know, like reality is there's some shady stuff going on always in college football. You know, like even before NIL, we all know like there's always been stuff going on. So like I understand like closing it off, but at the same time, it's like the depth chart is, I'd say, and you could chime in here. I think the depth chart right now, especially on the defensive side, is pretty secure. But like I think if we had a spring game, like we'd be able to tell, like, okay, like where is
yeah, that's just what a spring game is.
Like, what do the linebackers look like? Like, that's sort of a question I have. Like, you know, is Gentry gonna have a different role this year? He was doing a lot last year.
Looking on the offense, what are the running backs going to look like?
Yeah, exactly. Both sides of the ball, and of course that defensive back depth that we already talked about. I mean, I think we were pretty much set on who the 1 and 2, like the 2 deep for the DBs, but
I think so.
What about the true freshmen? There's a lot of young freshmen coming in on the defensive side. I mean, I'm pretty sure every defensive position in the DB department has a true freshman, I'm pretty sure, because Treston Castro, Kendarius Reddick, Steve Miller, Alex Graham, and James Johnson, excuse me, are all young guys, and I think they would have been cool to see. But besides the point, we can't change the fact that there's no spring game, so we'll just have to live with practice reports coming out and go into practice ourselves.